Welcome to Living Life in the And for the woman who is set on getting everything she effing deserves. I am your host, Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes, your best life transformation strategist. I help women to get everything they desire and deserve in life by equipping them with powerful strategies for immediate implementation to achieve fulfillment. Because life is too long to live unfulfilled. It's time. Girl, it's time. It's time for you to get everything you desire and deserve. It's time for you to live your life on purpose and to live a life of fulfillment, meaning, and joy. It's time. It's time for you to walk boldly in the power of your decisions. Because, girl, if you're going to be in this world, you need to be fulfilled in this life. Life is too long to live unfulfilled. Join me for another episode of Living Life in the And, where you learn how to achieve fulfillment and commit to completing all the desires of your heart.
Hey, it's time for Musing from the Mind of Dr. SDB, where I share poignant thoughts that help you to live your life in the end. Girl, I've got something. I had a revelation today. I had a revelation that convicted me and encouraged me and snatched me up all at the same time. You know, sometimes Sometimes God keeps a gift from you that He knows you will squander. You know, for about a 7 year period, and those of us who are believers and read the Bible, we know that seven has a significance. 7 years is the year's time frame in which debts are canceled. For about a 7 year period, it seemed as if I couldn't get anything to happen. I had some successes, I had some moments of joy, but for the most part, every business venture I tried failed. My relationships were just shit. Well, that's not a fair assessment. Some of them were, one of them was decent, but less I digress. But I went through this period of time where it seemed like nothing could go right, especially as it related to my business and my desire to live my purpose. I started on this journey of living my purpose. Really, I'm going to say in 2009. In 2009, I developed a leadership development program for the employer I had at the time. And I wanted to literally see more women at the table. And I often heard as an excuse for why women weren't represented in leadership was that there are no qualified women. That's bullshit they always say. Nobody's ever qualified. Yet we see idiots being promoted all the time. But let's not digress. Let's focus and get back on track. But I was always told that there were not enough qualified women. And so I created this leadership development program so that I could qualify those I knew were already qualified and give others the opportunity to develop that skill set. And actually began maybe a year before that when I decided I wanted to be a CEO because I determined at that time that the only way I could have the respect I desired and deserved was to be a CEO because everybody did with the CEO program. So if I were a CEO, I would have that amount of power. And so I started reading books because I read that CEOs read 4 to 5 books every month. And so I'm like, well, I need to read 4 to 5 books. And so I started reading the books that I saw on lists of books that CEOs read. And all of these books were about leadership and becoming better. And I ultimately realized that what I truly needed to become was not a CEO necessarily, but to become a better leader. And to become a better leader, there were certain things about myself that I needed to develop. And so all these books that I read in 2008, I used in 2009 to create a leadership development program. It's called Finding the Leader in You, or Developing the Leader in You, something like that. Anyway, Finding the Leader in You, that's what it's called. Finding the Leader in You. And so I developed this class, and eventually, over about a 5-year period, about 100 women went through that class, and many of them went on to become VPs in that company or leaders elsewhere. And I truly believe it was very impactful. And that's one of the things I'm the most proud of, because I truly believe that opportunity gave women a chance that otherwise would not have. But in 2010, I transformed that class into a commercial venture, and I called it something else. It was Leading Your Life to Excellence. And I eventually wrote a book. My first book was Leading Your Life to Excellence. And what it was a compilation, really, of everything I had learned, and it was the narrative version of this class. And I launched a business, and it got off to a good start. And I began offering a community version of this leadership development class. And I offered, I think it was 2 sessions of this class. And both were profitable, not as profitable as I would have liked, but both were very profitable. And I did this in 2012 and 2013. And in 2014, I decided that I wanted to quit my job as an executive for a health system and to become a full-time entrepreneur. Now, mind you, I did this with not damn business plan, not now, contract signed. But I truly believed in what I was doing, and I truly believed that I could be successful. I had a plan, but it wasn't the most well thought out. I was operating a little bit too much off of faith, and I don't regret it. But long story short, it was not profitable. And then in 2014, kind of my world started to slowly uncrumble. I was sued along with other members of a board, and it really rocked my world and made me lose confidence. It was the beginning of the erosion of my confidence, because I had always been way more confident than I should have been. Probably a little delusional, but sometimes you need to be a little delusional to be successful. But it was the beginning of the erosion of my confidence, and thing after thing after thing happened. And I got to a point where really I lost all confidence in myself, because I could not fully appreciate why nothing, quote, that I tried to do was successful. So 2014, I get sued. The next year, we moved to a new city. I hated it. I've always hated that city. It's the city of Huntsville. I don't have anything against the people of Huntsville, but I have had the most awful and traumatic experiences in Huntsville, and believe it to be the sunken place for me. And tried to restart my business in a new space, and I did have some success. 2016 was when I really began to see my life crumble. And my husband at the time of 21 years asked for a divorce. So December 2016, our divorce was final. And in 2017, I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, really excited about starting over because although I always say my marriage deserved to end, and I deserved to end, my marriage deserved a better ending. I'll say it like that. You know, we just simply grew apart and there were just differences in values and there were some other things. But anyway, I moved to Georgia, to Atlanta in particular in 2017. It was the first place I ever chose for myself. Everywhere else I had chose because of his career. He was is a physician. And so wherever he got his fellowships or jobs, that's where I went. And so I never got to choose a city for myself because it's where I wanted to live. I wanted to live in New York. But anyway, moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and things get off to a really great start. Things are going very well. My business is beginning to have traction. I literally traveled all over the world speaking and building my coaching business. I was an inaugural member of the Black CEO morning show. So I hosted a radio show along with several others for about a year and loved it. And then 2018 happens and just kind of things begin to fall apart. Like Chinua Achebe, one of my favorite African artists, things fall apart. So things begin to fall apart, even further. And I went into a depression. There's no other way to describe it. Because with each thing that didn't work out, I began to see myself as more of a failure and began to lose greater confidence because I couldn't figure out why things weren't working out. There were a multitude of reasons, none of which had anything really to do with my ability or the value of what I did. But, you know, business is about getting everything right, getting the marketing right, marketing to the right people, being able to express value in a way that resonates with those you want to give it to. But the last kind of ditch effort I had at launching something plummeted, I think, in February of 2018. And shortly after that, I just gave up. I just gave up and was in just this really, really bad space. And I had just lost my way. I'd lost my way and had lost complete confidence in my abilities. And all this time or during this time, I, am a believer, was a believer, prayed, and I believed in God, never lost belief in God. But honestly, I didn't believe that He would give me what He promised. I didn't believe He would deliver me. I didn't believe that I was worthy of the promises He had for me. And of course, He knew that. And over this period of time, I'm going to say up until 2021, I completely shut down my business at the end of 2018. I had personal crisis that stemmed from my own depression. My youngest son experienced a personal crisis, and I needed to be there for him, and I have no regrets about that. So I didn't have the mental bandwidth to be able to keep my business afloat, be who I needed to be for my son, and keep myself together. So I just decided to shut my business down and go back to practicing law full time. I still dabbled in law throughout that time, but I had a hard time getting a law job. And quite frankly, looking back, it was because, when people looked at my resume, like, well, what is she? Is she a lawyer? Is she a speaker? Is she a coach? Is she serious about practicing law? And so, there were, again, a number of things that impacted that, but I couldn't even get a law job. And here I was, a Harvard Law graduate at one point, working for a document production company, making, I think, $22 an hour. I think at one point went up to $27 an hour, doing document production, document reviews. And it represented such a fall from grace for me because as at the pinnacle of my career, I'd been general counsel for a health system. Before that, I had worked in several international law firms. I had a thriving law practice, and here I was doing document reviews with junior attorneys, like those who were like 1 and 2 years out of law school, and just otherwise not operating at the level I should have been. And so, long story short, I just thought God had abandoned me. I couldn't understand why. Why would he let me fall so low? And before I found this document production job, actually, I worked at David's Bridal. I was up watching Say Yes to the Dress one night, drinking a little bit too much wine, looking for jobs, ran across an ad for David's Bridal, applied, forgot I applied, but a couple of days later, they called. I went in for an interview and I was hired. Now, y'all, that was an humbling experience because here I was again, Harvard trained lawyer, selling bridal dresses for $11.75 an hour. And the first day I showed up, we had to wear all black. And, I had to wear what I had, but I showed up to this David's Bridal job in a black St. John's knit dress, and Jimmy Choo boots, making $11.75 an hour. And I felt like such a fraud. Like, talk about fronting. The outfit I had on cost more than the most expensive bridal dress in that store. I think, yeah. The outfit I had on cost more than the most expensive bridal dress in that store. And here I was trying to sell dresses to women. Now, the truth be told, I loved that job. I had the most fun. Y'all know I love me some fashion. So I really enjoyed the job, and I made peace in enjoying that. And I loved helping the brides plan their wedding day. And it was truly a joy to see them pick out their dresses and help them with their accessories and get all caught up in the excitement, and to ask them, is this the one? That's the tagline. And we don't ask, are you saying yes to the dress at David's Bridal? Is this the one? And I really loved it. I really loved that job. But it paid $11.75 an hour, and I could not live off of $11.75 an hour. So I eventually found the job where I was doing the document productions. And so it was a pay increase, but I hated that job because, y'all, I have never been a litigator. And a litigator is someone who goes to court. And if you work in the big law firms like I did, junior attorneys do document productions where you go and you look through all this shit and you have to categorize it, and it's boring. It's dusty documents, and I hated document production. And that's one of the reasons after my first year of practicing, I transferred from the energy and environmental section where I was doing basically mass torts, defense litigation, document production, to the health law section where I could do more transactional work. But I hated that job. I hated it. It was humiliating. It was humiliating to me to be there because it represented such a drastic fall from grace. But this job was saving my life because I could afford to live off of, I think it was $27 an hour. And I was able to begin to make payments on my credit cards because by that time, I maxed out all my credit cards because at one point I wasn't making anything. So it was on the way I could live. I had my alimony. Praise God for the alimony. And, it really was a step in the right direction. And eventually I got placed at a position where I think I made $40 and I was doing health compliance work. I hate compliance work. Anyway, lest I digress. I'm a creative. I love creating. I love solving problems and compliance. It's very needed and they're great compliance professionals, but that ain't my mission. That's I digress. But while I was there at the document production job, I would always focus on at least how to get out of there. A friend of mine, Dr. Tamara Putsuli, who is one of my sorority sisters who lives in Rome, had recommended to me to listen to Abraham Hicks. And I started listening to that. And if you don't know anything about Abraham Hicks, it's kind of like law of attraction. But the thing that was beautiful about listening to that is it refocused my vision. So instead of focusing on everything I've lost, because during this time, at one time, I kept telling myself I was in the Job season, which was the worst thing I could have ever told myself because I began to expect failure. And it began to reorient my mind and help me to really get out of depression, because I couldn't afford therapy. I didn't have health insurance, couldn't afford therapy. And I was praying, but again, I didn't really believe that God had anything good for me. I thought he was punishing me. I don't know why I thought he was punishing me, but I really thought he thought I was Job. But anyway, I began to refocus my mind and eventually was able to continually get better. I eventually got a great job at a medical school, and that really changed the trajectory of my life at that time because it got me back into doing a type of law that I really love, and it gave me a place to be safe. It's really a safe space for me. And I remember describing that experience. This was like 2019. I began describing that experience as I had been treading water at that point for about 2 years. And when I got to the medical school, it gave me an opportunity to get out of the raging waters and lay in the boat and just float. And so when I got that job, I just focused on breathing again because I had literally been treading water for about 2 years and I was tired. I was tired as hell. My mind was tired, my body was tired, and I was beginning to experience sickness. I had an autoimmune condition that was manifesting in allergic reactions. And at that time, I couldn't figure out what the allergic reaction was. I did figure out one thing. And I ended up having this really bad allergic reaction to a medication. And I ended up spending, I think, 2 or 3 nights at Grady's burn unit. The reaction was so bad, I was burning from the inside out. I'm like My whole body swole up. I looked like one of the clumps. I didn't even look like myself. And I literally, my right arm was burned. The entire arm was burned. My neck was burned. I had spots, different spots over my body. It was like I had been in a fire. And so they put me in the burn unit. And once they figured out what the medication was that was causing that and took me off of it, like literally within 24 hours, I began to just look like myself again because I didn't even look like myself. But it took me a while to heal because it's just like I had been burned. It was awful. But anyway, I want to make sure I get to these 3 points and don't go off too far. But I felt it was good to share this background and share the crescendo, if you will, to now. Um, why I think that God kept the gifts from me because He knew I would squander them. But in 2020, I got sick again. I got really sick, and I was experiencing debilitating pain from like January all up until November, and it was really bad. It was really bad. Of course, y'all know the pandemic hit in 2020, and I did get COVID. I got COVID in is that November? Yeah, November of 2020, and I before then I had recommitted to my business, and I started writing again, and I really was awakened by the reality that life is too long to be unfulfilled, and really awakened by the reality that, I could die. People were dying from COVID. And I'm like, hell, I could die too. And so I was like, well, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to be fulfilled. And that really was the birthing of where I am now and this commitment to not only me living fulfilled, but helping other women to be fulfilled. And so I got COVID in November 2020, and I was asymptomatic. If I hadn't gone and got tested, I never would have known I had COVID. The morning I tested for COVID, tested positive for COVID, the day I tested positive for COVID, I had run 10 miles. And a friend that I had gone out to lunch with, I let my guards down because I was tired of being in the house. And I went to Lenox Mall and got a damn cupcake. And I should have just gone in, got the cupcake and came out. But no, we sat upstairs and ate the cupcake, just sucking in COVID. But anyway, got COVID. She told me she was positive for COVID. And I got tested. And the day I got my positive results, I had run 10 miles. It felt great. And I was blessed that I was asymptomatic, but I didn't know what was going to happen. And so, of course, at that time, you had to be in isolation for 10 days. I was in isolation. And I didn't know if I was going to die in that 10 days by myself, in my apartment by myself. I was in a relationship, but may as well have been by myself. It was on the decline, and I ain't going to even get into that. But anyway, I was in this apartment by myself, and I'm like, if I die, ain't nobody gonna even know I'm in it. It's just me and my dog, me and Zara. And but I said, if I'm going to give this time purpose. And during that time of isolation, I gave it purpose, and I had a list. I made a list of things I wanted to do, things I wanted to write about. I wrote about my experience. I never even did anything with it, but every day I would write how I felt and what was happening with me, what I was experiencing mentally, and praising God that I still didn't develop symptoms and so forth. But I journaled that time, and I made purpose of that time so that I would not sit there and worry myself to death thinking I was going to die, because praise God, I was asymptomatic. But during that time, it really crystallized this commitment to being fulfilled. And I was grateful that God spared me. I didn't die. I did not die. And after that, just really continued to, make efforts and go forward. But I would have thought that, oh my gosh, I've had this revelation, I've had this miraculous experience, everything's going to go great. Everything did not. It did, but it didn't. It did, but it didn't. I got a new car in, I think, September 2020, because my old car was, I think I had 200 and something thousand miles on it. It was duct taped. Y'all, I was driving around Atlanta with my fender duct taped, black duct tape. Y'all, I believe in some black gorilla tape. That's like the best. But anyway, I was driving around. I had my fender duct taped on my car so that it wouldn't fall off. And because I had a good job at that point, I finally afford to buy me a new car. And so I decided to buy my dream car, which was a Mustang. Is a Mustang. I bought my Mustang initially in 1997. I bought this black convertible Mustang with the peanut butter interior, but I never really got a chance to enjoy it because I think maybe about 6 or 7 months after I bought it, I became pregnant with my first son, and a convertible Mustang really wasn't a child-friendly car, so I traded it in for a Tahoe. No, was it a Tahoe? Yukon Denali. And so after that, I had SUVs because I had boys who played lacrosse and so forth. So anyway, when I got the chance to buy my own car, I decided to get a Mustang. Got the Mustang, loved it, still love it. I'm going to drive it. I'm not a big car person. Cars are functional to me, although my Mustang is fun, but I'm not getting a new car anytime soon unless somebody buys me a with it. Anyway, so in 2021, I decided to start, my business back up. And I said, I'm going to start off slow. And I started with Morning Coffee with Dr. Stephanie. At that time, it was called Morning Coffee in the C-Suite. And I started another live teaching evening briefing, CEO evening briefing. And I'm grateful that I did that work. It's still available. If you join the successful, the Fulfilled Woman Alliance, actually, you can still have access to that. And some of my podcast recordings have been converted from that. So anyway, take little baby steps and experienced another hiccup and gave it up again. And then started it back up in 2023 and haven't looked back. But during this entire time, what I realized is that my mind was not where it needed to be. My confidence was not where it needed to be. And I still was experiencing the trauma of all the things that had happened since 2014. And had my business blown up and had I become as successful financially as I thought I would have squandered. I would have squandered it literally because I did not yet have the financial discipline to handle it. And I would have squandered it by allowing really the mental challenges that I was facing to rob me of consistency, and I would have thrown it all away. And so the thing that I realized is that, sometimes, well, not sometimes, God knows what we can handle. And he knows when we're going to fumble the bag. And y'all, if he had blessed me the way I prayed for him to bless me, I would have fumbled that bag so bad, it wouldn't even be funny. And so I'm grateful that in the last year, I have committed to my mental health and really healing some of the trauma, not some of it, I've been really healing the trauma that has kept me from operating at my highest and best level. And so I'm grateful. I'm grateful for everything I lost, because nothing I lost was anything that was destined for me. And everything I lost released me to be where I am now. And had I held on to those things, I could not do what I'm doing now. I would not feel what I'm doing now. And because I spent years unfulfilled, I know what it feels like. And so when I am able to speak into other women being fulfilled, it comes from a genuine place, because I know what it feels like to be unfulfilled. And because I know that abyss, I know the joy, the true joy there is in becoming fulfilled. So God made me wait. He made me wait until my mind, body, and spirit were healthy enough to be the good steward of the gift He has for me. And ever since then, things have been falling into place. And I still don't know exactly where God's going with me. I know what my vision is for my life. I know what the vision is I have for my business, because I know the women. I know the women God sent me here to serve. I know that I know that I know that what I'm doing now makes a difference and is impactful for the women I was assigned to serve. And I heard a sermon earlier this morning that prompted this musing, and it talked about living in your assignment, and it also talked about tests, and that over time you experience tests to see if you're ready for the degree. That's the point of any class you take, any educational setting. You take small tests to prepare you for larger tests. You take the big tests that prepare you to get the degree that's ultimately conferred on you. And if you are experiencing a time of tests, know this: you are being prepared. You are being prepared for the gifts that are destined for you. So just keep taking the test. And whether you make a 0 or 100, each test is preparing you for the next level. So I'm going to leave you with these 3 points. If you feel that you're in a space where you are not receiving the gifts you believe God has for you, or you are not seeing the evidence of the promise you believe is for you, here are 3 things I want you to do. Number 1, be honest. Be honest where you are. Take a good inventory. Is your mind, body, and spirit ready to receive all that it is you're asking for? Do you have the right mindset? Do you have the right people? Do you have the right systems? Do you have the right mechanism for keeping your mind motivated and determined? Do you know your why? Be honest. Where are you now? Number 2, be honest about where you need to be. Be honest about where you need to be. And if you are not where you should be honest about what it will take. And when you're honest about where you need to be, do the work. Do the work to get yourself there. Get your mind right. Invest in therapy, invest in meditation and prayer, invest in mental wellness. You will not succeed at anything you do when your mind does not have the capacity to handle all that you have to be a steward of. So that's number two. Be honest about where you need to be, do the work to get there. And number three, know this. If you were in front of me right now, I'd be looking you in the eyes. I might even hold your face and put my forehead to yours and look you in the eyes and tell you this. When you are ready, everything, everything you've been waiting for will materialize. Know that. Well, that's all I have to say about that. I thank you for joining me for another Musing from the Mind, Dr. SDB, where I share poignant thoughts that help you to live your life in the air. I hope you learned something. I hope you felt something. Most of all, girl, you something. Remember, fulfillment won't happen because you desire it. Fulfillment happens because you decide.
Hey, this is your girl, Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Living Life in the End for the woman who is set on getting everything she effing deserves. I hope you learned something, felt something, but most of all, girl, I hope you are ready to do something. Please be sure to let me know what you got out of this episode. Please subscribe so that you don't miss out on another great conversation. And of course, I'd love it if you would give us a rating and review and let me know how you are living life in the end. Because remember, life is too long to live unfulfilled. Your life is the product of your choices. Choose to commit to bringing the desires of your heart to completion. Let's get everything we deserve. Girl, let's get it.